Good Shabbos, everyone. Good Yontiv. Got 2 more days of matzah left to go. Let's go back and let's look a few days ago, the eve of Passover, Erev Pesach. Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania shared on Instagram a picture of his family's set Seder table in the governor's residence with the message, "From the Shapiro family Seder to yours, Happy Passover and Chag Sameach." In an interview on the same day with a Jewish Philadelphia food influencer, Governor Shapiro reflected on the significance of holding a Seder in the governor's mansion. And he wrote, this governor's residence, is a place where people of all different faiths feel comfortable. Where we celebrate the Seder, it's the exact same place where we have a Christmas tree in December, where we just hosted an iftar about 2-3 weeks ago. It's a place where everyone, I think, feels comfortable coming together. And it's a reminder that this is the greatest country on the face of the earth, because there are other places around the world where if you try to openly express your faith, you'd be thrown in prison or worse. And here, we get to openly celebrate that. In response, Emily, the food blogger, replied, "I love that you show your Jewishness openly, and I think that honestly makes me more comfortable being open about being Jewish," reflecting, of course, on the importance of public figures sharing their Jewish faith, their Jewish commitment with a wider audience. Just a few hours later after that interview, that residence that symbolized to Governor Shapiro religious freedom and understanding for Jews and for others was set on fire by a man infuriated by Shapiro's support of Israel, which itself springs from Shapiro's strong Jewish identity. It should be clear to anyone that attempting to murder Jewish people because of their support for Israel is anti-Semitism. The governor's mansion went very quickly from symbolizing Jewish safety and success to a symbol of the hatred of Jews that continues to threaten us in the United States today. As American Jews, we often don't know what to feel, living in 2 different realities. Are we living in a continued golden age for Jews, or are we the latest generation to face the oldest hatred that our ancestors were so familiar with? To put it in the language of the Passover holiday we are celebrating, are we slaves or are we free? And the answer, of course, is both and neither. It's this sense of disorientation, not knowing what to feel, that permeates the story that we read in the Torah this morning. Just 7 days ago, the Jewish people marched triumphantly out of Egypt, leaving behind centuries of oppression, forced slavery, and the shadow of an attempted genocide. Nearly 2 million strong, they had just witnessed the hand of God bringing down the mightiest empire in the ancient world. They had seen miracles, received divine promises, and were now on the path to their ancestral homeland of Israel, a land that God has promised them is flowing with blessing. This should have been a moment of pure victory and joy, but it's not, because the story, as the Torah often reminds us, is never so simple. When we opened the Torah this morning for the 7th day of Passover, we didn't read about a happy, confident people, but rather about a long detour. We read, "Now when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of Philistines, although it was closer, for God said, the people may have a change of heart when they see war and run back to Egypt. So God led the people the long way, by way of the wilderness of the Sea of Reeds." And we wonder as we read this story, what is it that they possibly have to be afraid of? Although they leave Egypt as victors, God knows that the Israelites are not yet ready to stand up for themselves. They may be free in body, but are not truly free in spirit. And so God takes them the long way to avoid the danger. The classic Torah commentator Ibn Ezra explains that they had been scared and unable to defend themselves for so long that now they would still act like the terrified slaves when threatened and run back to the false protection of Egypt. They were no longer slaves, but they were not yet truly free, reminding us, as we remember at the Seder, that redemption is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. They were strong, but they were also vulnerable at the exact same time. And that is just like us. We live in a country where proud, practicing Jews can attain the highest levels of public office, but at the same time live with the constant fear that those who hate us are coming to get us, whether it is in highly protected homes like governors' mansions, the streets of cities with large Jewish populations, or the classrooms and quads of prominent college campuses. That fear has felt so strong in the past year, and it's a fear that we don't know what to do with. The Jewish people at the sea do not know what to do either. They panic, and they turn on each other, on Moses and on God. They want an easy solution, but are not willing to look at themselves to try to find it. We recognize that we also feel this sense of panic right now. We often turn on each other by blaming the other side of the political spectrum for our anti-Semitism problems. We've looked for easy solutions that don't actually solve problems. Start with Hakarat HaTov, with gratitude. It's important to say how appreciative I am to have leaders and an administration in this country that has loudly and clearly declared that Jews should be safe in America, and that targeting Jews because of Israel is anti-Semitism. That's something that we can't and should not take for granted, because it's not always been that way. At the same time, I question whether actions designed to show power and dominance, like deportation of students and destroying universities with sledgehammers, will genuinely help us, or just create anarchy and possibly even foster more hatred of Jews. Personally, I'm a graduate of Columbia University. Even 20-plus years ago, my classmates and I experienced harassment from students and groups on campuses who accused us of apartheid and genocide. Perhaps even more dangerously, the very same professors that are there now taught toxic ideologies in class that blamed Jews and Israel for world problems. What we went through 20 years ago doesn't even compare to the climate on that university today. There's a part of me that feels so vindicated watching Columbia finally be held accountable. There's a part of me that wants to see the whole place burned down. But another part of me worries. What will others learn from this moment? Will they learn that Jewish fear leads to retribution, to revenge? Will they learn that our pain of Jewish people, can be used as a tool to punish others? Will this truly make Jews safer, or will it hurt us in the long term? Will people being afraid of us make us safer in this country? Or to go back to the language of the Torah portion of the holiday, are we walking towards redemption, or are we simply reacting, trapped between Pharaoh's charging army and the deep, dangerous, cold waters of the sea? Jewish tradition encourages us to live with that sense of uncertainty that we feel, encourages us to move forward even in the face of a fear that can be crippling, where we don't know how to respond. In fact, Jewish tradition offers us a model at the banks of the sea. A famous midrash tells us about one man, Nachshon ben Aminadav, for the tribe of Judah, the man who walks straight into the sea up until his nose. And at that moment, God sees his act of faith, splits the sea, and saves the Jewish people. It's important to note that Nachshon didn't know what would happen when he walked dangerously into the sea. He didn't wait for a consensus from the people around him on moving forward, because he never would have gotten it. He took a leap of faith, and that act of faith changed everything. Nachshon, I think, is a wonderful role model. We don't need to pretend that we're not afraid. We should not pretend that we know with certainty how to end this ancient disease. But we can choose to move forward with the strength of that faith. It's not easy, and the fear is real, but often we have to take those steps into the sea. After the arson on his home, Governor Shapiro affirmed that nothing the assailant could do would deter him from practicing his faith. Then he went with his wife Lori to serve lunch to the local firefighters who had responded to the fire. At the firehouse, a chaplain, Christian chaplain, gave him a note that brought him to tears. It was the priestly blessing from Bimidbar that he, like so many Jewish people, uses to bless his children on Shabbat. When asked about the prayer in the news, he said, "That's a prayer and a hope that we have for our kids every day, that they have shalom, that they have peace in their lives." Obviously, that peace was shattered on Sunday morning, but it is a hope and a prayer that we have, not just for our kids, but every child across Pennsylvania, that they live in a society that's free and peaceful, where they are protected and they are watched over by God. In the end, in our story, the Jewish people did cross the sea. They didn't know what would happen next, but they trusted that God was with them at that moment. So too, we live with many setbacks, with many difficult moments and much uncertainty. We don't know what will happen in our politics, in our communities, and on campuses. But we know that Jewish history did not end in Egypt, and it did not end 7 days later after leaving at the banks of the Red Sea. We know that that moment the whole nation chose to walk forward, and at that moment they were transformed and they were saved. As we pray on this Passover, when we face so many dangers from all sides of us, that we have the faith and the strength to walk forward too, modeling that strength that we have within us, that strength that generations of Jews who come before us have given to us to go forward and to face these challenges. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.